Hello, I'm Simon Mundy. This is the Continuo Connect podcast, and I shall be talking over the years to, I hope, a lot of famous musicians and some who are perhaps should be more famous about the projects that they're doing, about who they are, and about their works coming up. Today, I'm talking to Mary-Jannet Leith, who is part of ensemble Hesperi. And Hesperi is one of the many ensembles that are supported by the Continuo Foundation for their work in the UK. Mary-Jannet, hello.
Hello, Simon. It's lovely to be with you today.
We've got a lot to talk about, and the thing that I always want to ask of an ensemble is, how did you come by the name Hesperi?
It was quite a strange one, really. It was a long time ago as well, as you can imagine. We've been working together since 2018, but the name, I think, came even before that. Hesperi means evening stars in Latin, and I think it was just something we felt kind of gave a bit of a sense of something special, but also, just linking it to being on stage. So, the kind of whole variety of the night sky. But in a sense, sometimes one thinks, why did we choose that name? It's in the distant things of time, but it works for us for sure.
Well, it's a lovely name, and one thinks, of course, of Jordi Savall's Hesperi on
One
21
does, yes.
as well. And Seren in Welsh, of course.
Of course.
So we'll go with that. But Hesperi,
yes.
The Evening Stars Ensemble, who are the stars? Tell me about yourselves.
So there's myself on recorder, Magdalena Lothhill on violin, and also Florence Pettit, our cellist, Baroque cellist, and Thomas Allery on harpsichord.
And what's the music focus for you? Is it Baroque or is it Renaissance?
It's largely Baroque, not exclusively. And in fact, kind of more recently, we've been doing a lot of expanded projects with, bringing in more musicians. And for those, we have gone quite a bit later, a little bit of early classical. And also it's possible for us to go earlier as well with the kind of recorder focus. So that's the next thing, is to acquire a gamba so that Florence can do some, earlier repertoire as well. But yes, I think we sort of started off in the Baroque kind of focus, because that was our instrumentation and that's where we were there. It made sense, but for sure we kind of, we want to try anything really that sort of makes sense to us.
And you say you're the recorder player. Do you play all varieties of recorder, or is there one particular one you specialize with?
Not particularly, no. I'm sort of, any and all recorders. I've got a, fair collection here with me. I kind of end up using the Baroque ones most often. I think most people do. But I do have some beautiful Renaissance instruments as well. And then if I'm playing in a recorder consort, I would also use, sort of nice consort instruments as well, which are always very, very beautiful when you manage to get them in tune with each other.
Lay them out on a table next to you in the concert, rather like a drummer with his sticks.
Exactly. Yes, I've got a little cushion, that I try and place relatively near me. So, because occasionally I'll change instrument during a piece or a movement, so I quick change.
So tell me about the music that you're doing at the moment and ones that you'll be taking on tour in the next few months.
Yep. So we have this really exciting project with Buskaid. Now, Buskaid is the South African musical charity. It's based in Dalkeith in Soweto in Johannesburg, and it's been going nearly 30 years now. It's a music school, and basically their disadvantaged children learn stringed instruments. There's about 85 students there at the moment, and it's really an amazing thing, founded by Rosemary Nalden, who was a viola player in the UK before she then moved out to be permanently based in South Africa. And I became quite involved with Buskaid as an administrator. When I was starting off in my performance career, I did a fair amount of arts administration as well. And so I was actually the fundraising, sort of UK fundraising branch of Buskaid, administrating everything to do with that for about 10 years. I've just finished that, and really at the end of that, it was just so wonderful because suddenly the ensemble was going to be able to come over to the UK, and therefore I thought this is a wonderful opportunity for us to do a joint project with some members of the Buskaid Soweto String Ensemble, which is essentially the sort of flagship ensemble from the school, from the music school. So we've got 10 members of the ensemble coming across in August. And for that, we're doing 2 combined concerts, same program. And the music for that is essentially a kind of, lovely balance between some Baroque favourites, some Bach, a Telemann suite, a recorder suite, which I particularly love and haven't been able to perform for a while. Also some Bologna, some Sancho. So, a really good mix of composers. And then at the end, Buskaid will perform some quella, so some township music. So it really should be quite energetic and something we've never done before. So it's been great that, we've been able to put this together and with the support of the Continuo Foundation as well.
It's extraordinary to me that you cannot think of 2 more culturally diverse places than Telemann's Europe and Soweto.
Yes.
Baroque music in what was originally called the southwestern township, wasn't it, of Johannesburg, Soweto, in apartheid days. What do they make of Baroque music? It must seem very, very strange to them.
Well, I'm not sure. It does, actually. In a sense, it's obviously sort of not something they hear around, sort of naturally hear. But what Rosemary has always found is that, she recruits the kids very young. There's always waiting lists for the music school. And they don't exclusively play Baroque music, but they do mostly Western classical. And Baroque seems to be, however, always the students' favourite. Particularly Rameau and Purcell. So we're playing some of that as well. And really it seems to appeal to the kind of style of playing that Rosemary basically has instigated at the music school. She uses something called the essential string method by Sheila Nelson, and it's really all about sort of freedom of movement and free-flowing expression. And really, this is very, very similar to kind of that historically informed performance style as well. So we kind of feel that in many ways, the musical styles that we're both going for as ensembles is very similar, despite the chasm of geographical distance between us.
South Africa, of course, does have a long classical tradition, but
Yes.
most of Africa doesn't. You've only got to go up to Malawi and Zimbabwe and Zambia, and you lose that sense of connection at all with Western culture. So it's very interesting to know that that's taken root in South Africa, and especially in somewhere like Soweto.
Absolutely, and it's really interesting because you have, I think in South Africa, as in many places, it's definitely not limited to non-Western places. It's increasingly difficult to sell classical music at all. And one of the difficulties that they find is that there's no longer a classical radio station in Johannesburg. So whilst it was very easy to kind of spread the word about their concerts in the past, it's now more difficult. So they've been doing quite a lot of work in terms of their kind of online visibility. So they've got a great YouTube channel now where you can just go and explore all of their concerts. They give a big concerts every year at the Linda Auditorium in Johannesburg. And, they also tour. But it has been, as you can imagine, a little bit more difficult since the pandemic to tour. It's become very expensive. So actually, the reason that they're coming to the UK, apart from to perform with us, is also to teach at a summer school, the ESTA summer school. So basically, that's kind of like a really interesting opportunity for educational kind of things, both in terms of them sort of sharing their teaching methods, but also us kind of learning from them and giving them the opportunity to perform next to us as well. So it's really lovely. I can imagine it's going to be very good in terms of educational development for both sides.
ESTA, I think, is the European String Teaching Association.
It is. That's right. Yes, exactly. So that's kind of the first reason why they decided to come over. But of course, once you're over, they haven't actually been to the UK since 2014. So you've got to plan a tour.
Absolutely. Now, Buskaid itself. Tell me a little bit about Buskaid.
Yeah. So Buskaid, I mentioned it's a music school, essentially, so a charity for now nearly 30 years.
Is it about busking? Clearly not, because
No, not at all. So Buskaid just refers to the music school itself now, and the charity. But the reason it is called Buskaid was because from the very beginning, the sort of initial effort was a busk, and a essentially a London-wide busk. And it was mainly what we would now say historically informed performers who were doing that busking. And it was at most of the railway stations in London, which of course is difficult to organise these days, but back in 1992 was a bit more straightforward. So Rosemary and many of her colleagues essentially busked at stations, I think on a particular day, in order to raise money for a string project which was already established in Soweto, but was struggling. And so that was the idea to begin with, simply to raise money for that. Rosemary decided to go there herself in order to essentially see what it was like and how it could be helped, and obviously to hand over the money that had been raised. And I think she really got the bug and, ended up getting more involved and then starting her own project. So in a sense, it kind of grew from something really very small and then has blossomed into something very impressive.
Sort of flash mob on the road.
Yeah, early music flash mob. There's some wonderful photos of sort of early music instruments at all the London stations, that time ago.
Now, without the Buskaid connection, tell me about Hesperi and what you're doing over the next few months yourselves.
Yeah, so following this collaboration, we are working on a new program at the moment. So we're very excited. We've had so our violinist Magda has been essentially away for a few months. She's had a baby, which is wonderful news, and she'll be coming back. We've been working with several violinists over the last few months, but she returns in September. So just in time to essentially get this new program up and running. It's going to be another Scottish program. So one of our USPs as an ensemble is Scottish 18th century music. That's my specialism in terms of research. I completed a PhD a couple of years ago on Scottish music in 18th century London. So I'm kind of really interested in the musicians who moved from Scotland and made a career for themselves in London and published and did various things.
You're one of them, aren't you?
And I'm one of them. Well, in this century, yes. So yes, exactly. It's kind of mirrors my own story. So I'm from Aberdeen, and I'm again, sort of have ended up down in London to do what I do now. But yep, so this is the new idea. We had our first program was called Full of the Highland Humours back in 2019. We did a great Arts Council funded tour of that. It went down very well, and we've done several other programs since. But people always say, "Oh, can you do that Scottish program?" So we're thinking now's the time to do another one. And I'm working with a couple of people, collaborating with Scottish historic houses and castles, many of which have fantastic archives, musical archives. So there's been some great research already done on some of them. There are others which are very much less explored. So our plan is essentially to do a program surrounding that theme. So what would it have been like to, basically go over to a castle in the evening in the 18th century and what kind of music would you have heard? And of course that encompasses not just Scottish music, Scottish traditional music as we would say, I suppose, but also the latest, Corelli and everything, and Handel and everything that was popular at the time. So it's really kind of more like a big flexible concept. It means we can adjust programs very easily to different venues, so hopefully to several houses, and also any venue really that has a kind of history within that. So some within Scotland, others elsewhere, but there's going to be a Scottish connection running through that.
And some of those splendid castle libraries where you can
find
a few manuscripts still. I remember once going with some early music singers to Longleat in the Marquis of Bath's place, And the Marquis, the old Marquis, 2 Marquises ago, in fact,
Yes.
what he said was a door to the library to new music, and it was actually a fridge for the gin.
Yes, I can imagine that. And it's really interesting. So, for my PhD, I was, constantly in private archives as well as, sort of larger repositories. And, sometimes you just come across something that sort of didn't mean much to someone else, but then, to you, it's like, wow, this is really amazing. Last week, a couple of weeks ago now, we headed up to Boughton House to have a look at the Montague collection there. And we're hoping that we'll do a concert at Boughton and hopefully also at Dalkeith, Paris, using some of the manuscript volumes from that collection, which are really interesting. A lot of them are volumes that belonged to women. So you kind of get a sense of their lives, what they were collecting, what they enjoyed playing in the domestic sphere. So there's a lot of that. But there's just, some really unusual things. So we're really hoping to feed a lot into our programs for these places. And also to kind of vary our time period as well, because some historic houses have, a harpsichord, others have a square piano. In fact, many have square pianos. So we can adjust and use different musicians and expand and make new programs that are flexible, which is always really fun, based on the research for each place.
That sounds an enormous amount of fun, and I wish you well with all of it.
Thank you.
Even I might get to the odd castle to have a listen. Thank you very much indeed.